Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another morning commute with Yam, Sunday's editorialized, opinion column-based video. Today, I'm posing the question, who should buy a Yamaha R9? Who is the prospective customer that Yamaha is trying to attract with this motorcycle that I'm aboard right now? The new Yamaha R9, which is a pretty fun, spicy little meatball. This thing's pretty sweet. I've been thinking about this question a lot because we launched our review video that did really well, and I've been riding this bike more and more on road. I've ridden it on track, and I thought to myself, who is that customer that Yamaha is attracting? So I guess first of all, we'll do a little bit of an interactive thing with today's video, in that we will actually ask you guys, if you have bought an R9 or you're going to go buy an R9, tell me your situation down below. I'd love to know what you guys are trying to do with the motorcycle, where your head's at. Kind of give me your situation. Tell me your age, your location, ASL please, you know, for those of you who are a little bit older on the internet. Because I am curious, like, who is that person? Because in my mind, a motorcycle that's retailing brand new for $12,500, you know, it's kind of comfortable, pretty track oriented, pretty sporty, definitely tugging on the nostalgia of old Yamaha R bikes. This motorcycle, I think, to me anyways, the prospective buyer would be someone kind of like mid to late 30s, maybe early 40s, is old enough to remember some of the heyday stuff of the Yamaha R bikes, and it's the kind of guy that wants something that's reasonably comfortable for the road, but still sporty, still feels like he's riding a real deal sports bike. You know, I mentioned this in the review, but I really do think that this motorcycle is spiritually very close to late 90s, early 2000s sport bikes before they became insane race-ready replicas. Think back to the old Fireblades. They were often lauded of being really comfortable to ride on roads, still really fun to use, and the power that this thing puts out is actually really close to an old 900 class superbike from back in the day. This thing makes nearly 120 horsepower. I think the old CBR 900s used to make something similar. You can kind of think of this as a new interpretation of an old school superbike. I think a lot of people have been scratching their heads about this motorcycle, saying, oh, it can't be a Yamaha R6 replacement because this motorcycle doesn't rev as high, doesn't do all these things. But maybe if we rethink of it as a kind of like new interpretation of an old school superbike, then maybe it starts to make a little bit more sense. And to be honest, pretty good value for money if you think of it that way. So yeah, it's a 900cc motor, 890, 120-ish horsepower, 70 foot-pounds of torque, thereabouts. So yeah, someone who's getting back into the game, you know, I could definitely see this motorcycle being fit in their garage. One thing I can't really see for this motorcycle is, you know, someone really young buying it. I mean, I can certainly see someone going and taking a loan out to get this motorcycle. That's certainly something that people do. But, I mean, the economy is in really bad shape. The jobs report came out recently, and things are not nearly looking as good as we thought it was. And I think that, you know, young people are not really in the position to go out and buy a $12,500 motorcycle as a toy, as a side piece, you know. Even a kid with a decent job making 60, 70K a year right out of college or something is probably going to, if they're at all financially responsible, look at this and say, I really don't need that, you know. Because this motorcycle isn't really like a clout chasing kind of motorcycle. It kind of is right now just because it's brand new and all of the online creators are buying them so that they can get more clicks and views. Myself included, for full transparency. The primary reason I bought a Yamaha R9 as our latest giveaway motorcycle is simply because it's the bike with the most hype right now. It's the newest kid on the block, and I kind of have to make content about it. So that's the business, if you want a little behind the scenes here. So really quick, it is a giveaway bike on yamaneve.co. Click the link down below and enter to win. Make sure you're signed up. We just wrapped up the Panigale V2S, and I'm actually selecting the winner for that one today. So I don't quite know yet who won by the time this video goes live. So there you go. One feature of the mid-2000s economy was that people could get really easy credit with really bad credit scores. So sport bike sales were booming, And, you know, any 18, 19-year-old kid could go and finance a Yamaha R6 by using their lunch money and their job at Domino's. Those days are kind of gone. I don't really know of a 19-year-old kid who's going to be able to go and buy a $12,500 motorcycle without at least a co-signer or taking on an incredibly predatory loan. So I think the very young crowd for the Yamaha R9 kind of, you know, doesn't really exist. To be honest, Yamaha will sell you an R7, which I've seen is a very popular motorcycle for the kind of like 19 to 22-year-old crowd. I've seen lots of short-form creators utilizing R7s, you know, it's kind of like the gateway drug into the Yamaha R world, and maybe the R9 will exist as their, you know, potential upgrade bike. They think, oh man, okay, I'll ride an R7 for like 2 years, then I'll jump up to an R9. Cool, cool, cool. The other customer that I think maybe exists for the Yamaha R9 is the track day junkie crowd. This is a motorcycle that has really solid race pedigree at the moment. Lots of people piloting them out in World Supersport and in Moto America and another national level competition. So I could see someone who's a big Yamaha aficionado, maybe they've bought and owned and built a couple R6s, R1s for racing and track day use. They then turn around and say, yeah, you know what, like, let's pilot out that R9, let's get that motorcycle, let's build it up as a platform. Because the knowledge base on this motorcycle has increased a ton in the last 4 to 5 months. People are dyno tuning them, they're changing exhaust, they're figuring out the ECU mappings, they're understanding what's a good like baseline setup for these motorcycles and then kind of going from there. Best practices for geometry on these motorcycles, because as it's been pretty well documented, you can't really fit slicks on this machine unless you modify the swing arm. Warmers and different gearing and a taller race-ready set of rubber impacts this bike's ability to work as a track machine, because it then is unfortunately you know, like, you can't really fit the rubber on there, so that's a modification you got to do. That affects geometry, makes it longer, so yeah, that's things that people are already working on. The other customer that I could see is someone looking to add a sport bike to their stable. Maybe it's a gentleman who has a, you know, kind of a bop around commuter touring adventure bike. Maybe they got a Big Daddy Goldwing like that one over there that just flew by. And they're like, yeah, you know, I want a little spice in my life. I want something nice. And, you know, this is something I wanted to mention too. There's a big, very vocal, maybe they're a vocal minority. I don't know if it's a vocal majority, but there's a contingency of motorcyclists that thinks that you should never buy a brand new motorcycle. You should always get something used, that only suckers buy brand new bikes. And to that I say, well, if nobody ever buys a brand new motorcycle, there will never be a used motorcycle to buy. Somebody has to buy the brand new bikes, and I don't think it's just suckers that buy them. Some people have great credit scores, some people have disposable income, some people have the ability to go and spend a lot of money on a toy. And you know what? A factory fresh bike with a warranty and no issues at all, yeah, it's very appealing. So maybe it's somebody adding to the stable as well too. Maybe somebody is adding a fun sport bike to their stable. I could see this motorcycle as somebody's like, oh, I kind of want to get into like sport bikes and track days type of bike. You know, they're different than that racer / track junkie I spoke about earlier. Maybe it's somebody who's like, oh, you know, I think I want to try my hand at sport bikes. This thing has enough power to keep me entertained, but it's not radical like a freaking Panigale V4 or an R1 where it has 200 plus horsepower. I think that, you know, you gotta think about the amount of power on track, because yeah, more horsepower is obviously more fun on track, but at the same time, if you are kind of going at it for the very first time, it's usually bad practice to show up on a brand spanking new leader bike in the novice group and try to learn the lines and such. You know, you should really think about actually you know, picking up the throttle a little bit with some urgency. And this bike is great. It's got slide control, it's got traction control, you can open the throttle and feel confident that the bike's not gonna immediately just get away from you. It's got a ton of torque, I will say. People have been dyno testing these at well over 70 foot-pounds of torque to the tire, which is a ton of torque. So that's something to think about if you want this machine as your entry-level track day motorcycle. You got some disposable cash and you're like, yeah, I want a little track bike. And the other thing about it too, as I mentioned, this thing does require a bit of setup and prep, so maybe you are better off buying a little clapped out $5,000 600 to go and learn and have some fun with. The other customer I can see getting into the Yamaha R9 could maybe be the customer that is thinking about upgrading from their beginner bike. I've seen a lot of the CF Moto people of the world and that sort of things. Oh, this guy's just blocking me up here now, huh? That's okay, I can get by. So if you start on like a CF Moto or something, you then want to upgrade to a more premium brand, which is funny because Yamaha hasn't really historically been a super premium brand. It's been something more along the lines of affordable and approachable. But in the world of $8,000 CF Motos, a $12,000 500 Yamaha is certainly a little bit more premium. And so yeah, maybe the R9 functions as, you know, maybe you start off on your Chinese motorcycle, dick around a little bit, and then you're like, all right, I'm gonna get my first big boy bike. I think the R9 is a pretty sweet first, like, yeah, this is a real deal fast motorcycle, my first big bike. I think a lot of people could use the R9 for that. So boys, I think that's gonna wrap it up for today. Those are my kind of thoughts on who the R9 is for, what kind of prospective customers would buy it. I'm super curious to hear the feedback of those of you who have purchased this bike or considering purchasing it, and just like, let me know what your situation is, because I'd love to hear it. Thanks again for watching today's video, these fun vlogs on Sundays. I'm having a lot of fun doing these on my way up to the Gaming Noob HQ. And I appreciate y'all checking out the video. Make sure you sign up for the giveaway R9 in the link down below. And I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.